Michael Wittmann was born on April 22, 1914, in Vogeltal, a small village in Bavaria. His beginnings were unremarkable. The son of a farmer, quiet, diligent, reserved. But his path would take him from rural fields to the most mechanized and destructive battlefields in history. In 1934, at the age of 20, Wittmann joined the German military. He first served with a traditional infantry unit, but quickly transferred into the newly formed Waffen-SS, a politically loyal elite force that would become infamous for its ideological zeal and battlefield ferocity. For Wittmann, however, it wasn't ideology that shaped his rise. It was machinery, specifically tanks. By 1941, during Operation Barbarossa, Wittmann was commanding a Sturmgeschütz 3 assault gun on the Eastern Front. There, amidst the brutal heat and mud of the Soviet plains, he earned his first recognition. With a calm demeanor under fire and deadly accuracy, he quickly developed a reputation for both discipline and destruction. But it was in 1943, when Wittmann was assigned to the elite SS Panzer Division Leibstandarte Adolf Hitler, that his name began to carry real weight. Now at the controls of a Tigerbus heavy tank, a monster of steel with near impenetrable armor and a powerful 88mm gun, Wittmann entered the pantheon of German war legends. He participated in the Battle of Kursk, the largest tank battle in history. There, Wittmann's unit destroyed dozens of Soviet tanks in tightly coordinated maneuvers. Reports, many exaggerated, some factual, began to circulate, a single tank knocking out entire Soviet formations. To his comrades, Wittmann became a symbol of elite fighting spirit. To Nazi propaganda, he became a poster boy, the perfect warrior, efficient and obedient. But behind the headlines and medals lay a truth more complex. War was changing. The battlefield was no longer about individual heroics, but logistics, strategy, and the overwhelming weight of Allied industry. Still, Wittmann, ever composed, ever aggressive, pressed forward. In June 1944, he and his crew were sent to Normandy, where the Allied invasion had begun. The stage was set for Wittmann's most famous and final battle. June 13, 1944. Normandy was burning. Just 1 week after D-Day, British forces were pushing through the French countryside toward the strategic city of Caen. The 7th Armored Division, the famed Desert Rats, was moving through the village of Villers-Bocage, lightly escorted and unaware that one of Germany's most feared tank commanders was nearby. Michael Wittmann, commanding a lone Tiger I tank, spotted the British column. What followed would enter military lore. In a surprise move, Wittmann drove directly into the road, alone, and began engaging the British vehicles at close range. In just 15 minutes, he destroyed more than a dozen vehicles, including Cromwell and Sherman tanks, half-tracks, and troop carriers. The attack created chaos, halted the British advance, and gave German forces valuable time to reinforce the area. For this action, Wittmann received additional commendations. He was awarded the Oak Leaves to his Knight's Cross, one of Nazi Germany's highest military honors. Nazi propaganda capitalized on the event instantly, producing photos, articles, and newsreels portraying Wittmann as an indestructible warrior. His face appeared in newspapers across Europe. He was not just a soldier, he was a myth. But there were questions. Some claimed Wittmann's success was exaggerated, that other tanks had also fired during the battle, that the British column was vulnerable and poorly defended. Others noted that such solo actions, while daring, were ultimately tactically reckless. Military analysts today still debate the true scale and strategic value of his stand at Villers-Bocage. And then came August 8, 1944. Wittmann, still fighting in Normandy, was leading several Tiger tanks near the village of Saint-Aignan de Cramonil. It was supposed to be a standard armored thrust, but unknown to him, Allied reconnaissance aircraft had already marked his position. Several Canadian Sherman Firefly tanks, with guns powerful enough to pierce even the Tiger's armor, were lying in wait. In the span of seconds, Wittmann's tank was hit. Ammunition ignited. The turret was blown clear off the chassis. No one survived. His body was never positively identified at the time, and the wreckage burned for hours. For decades, rumors surrounded his death. Some claimed American aircraft destroyed his tank. Others believed British commandos were involved. But most evidence today points to the 1st Northamptonshire Yeomanry, a British tank unit, as the likely source of the fatal shots. Michael Wittmann died at age 30. A veteran of more than 140 tank engagements, with over 130 enemy vehicles reportedly destroyed, he left behind a legacy that would be dissected for generations. But with his death also came reflection. What did it mean to be called a hero in a war of invasion and destruction? In the years following World War II, Michael Wittmann's name did not vanish. Quite the opposite. Among military enthusiasts and historians, particularly in the West German Bundeswehr and in tank warfare circles, Wittmann became a case study in armored tactics, initiative, and battlefield composure. His confirmed kill count, though disputed in its exact number, was unparalleled. His ability to operate independently under pressure, his intuition on terrain, and his quick decision-making became material for analysis in military academies around the world. But there was a problem, and it still lingers today. Wittmann fought for Nazi Germany as an officer of the Waffen-SS, the same organization responsible for some of the worst atrocities of the war. Though there is no direct evidence linking Wittmann to war crimes, his role as a symbol within the Nazi propaganda machine makes his legacy more than just military. He was idealized as the model warrior of the regime, disciplined, deadly, and loyal. The state needed men like him, not just for their skill, but for the image they projected. Even today, some portray Wittmann as a pure soldier, separated from the politics of the regime he served. But can that separation really hold? In the late 1980s, Wittmann's remains and those of his crew were finally located and exhumed. They were reburied in a German military cemetery in La Combe, Normandy, a site that has since become a place of quiet, conflicted reflection. Some visitors see a skilled tactician. Others see a symbol of how quickly heroism can be weaponized by authoritarian systems. Modern historians warn against glorifying individuals like Wittmann without context. Yes, he was a brilliant tank commander, but he was also a willing cog in a regime that brought destruction across Europe. His story is not one of simple valor or villainy, but a reminder that war often turns ordinary men into legends, and then uses those legends to rewrite uncomfortable truths. Long after the last Tiger rolled across European soil, Michael Wittmann's name continued to echo. Not only in military history, but in books, internet forums, reenactment circles, and pop culture. While the world moved toward healing and reconstruction, a subculture of fascination with German armored warfare emerged. And Wittmann stood at its center. In the Cold War era, Western armies, including NATO, took an interest in Wehrmacht and Waffen-SS tactical doctrines. Not because of ideology, but because many of Germany's late war solutions had proven technically advanced. Bundeswehr officers and NATO analysts studied battle reports involving figures like Wittmann for insights into mobile warfare, command initiative, and tank versus tank engagement principles. Meanwhile, In the public sphere, Wittmann was slowly absorbed into the growing genre of clean Wehrmacht mythmaking, the false narrative that German soldiers had fought honorably while atrocities were committed only by Nazi political organs like the SS or Gestapo. This narrative overlooked that Wittmann served in the Waffen-SS, a force that was both political and military, and declared a criminal organization at Nuremberg. In post-war West Germany, a generation struggling to reconcile guilt and national pride found in Wittmann a paradoxical figure. A man who represented battlefield brilliance without direct moral compromise, at least on the surface. Some war memoirs and military books, particularly from the 1950s to 70s, treated him as a pure soldier, reducing the ideological weight of the uniform he wore. But over time, that image began to crack. Historians such as Sönke Neitzel and Wolfram Bethe exposed how deeply entangled Wehrmacht and Waffen-SS operations were with the machinery of genocide, scorched earth tactics, and total war doctrine. Even if Wittmann had not personally participated in executions or reprisals, his unit, the SS Leibstandarte, was implicated in multiple war crimes on the Eastern Front, including civilian massacres and the murder of prisoners. The question became not just, what did Wittmann do, but what did he represent? He was not just a commander. He was part of a system. He benefited from its structure, its propaganda, and its symbols. And when he became a media icon in 1944, his image reinforced the myth of German invincibility, a myth that cost millions of lives. In modern Germany, public memorials to Waffen-SS soldiers are either removed or carefully contextualized. But online, Wittmann remains a magnet for militaria enthusiasts. Some well-meaning, others disturbingly revisionist. His image has appeared on posters, in video games, and even on merchandise, often stripped of context, leaving only the cold fascination with a tank killer. This, perhaps, is the most dangerous after effect. When technical skill becomes disconnected from the reality it served, and history is flattened into spectacle. The story of Michael Wittmann is more than the tale of a skilled tank commander. It's a case study in how war creates heroes, and how nations, societies, and even individuals construct meaning from the violence of history. Wittmann's fame was never just about tactics. It was about timing, imagery, and narrative control. He rose at a moment when Nazi Germany desperately needed symbols of strength, and he became that symbol. His battles, particularly at Villers-Bocage, were captured, polished, and projected to millions. He wasn't just a soldier, he was a national myth. But what happens when the myth survives longer than the truth? In a world where social media algorithms reward bold imagery and oversimplified narratives, Wittmann has found a strange afterlife. YouTube videos label him the greatest tank commander of all time. Gaming communities create tributes without context. His likeness circulates in fan-made documentaries that often omit even the basic facts of his SS affiliation. To remember Wittmann responsibly is not to deny his battlefield competence, nor is it to reduce him to a caricature of evil. Rather, it is to hold both truths in parallel, that he was a gifted tactician and a product of one of the most destructive regimes in human history. Modern historians encourage what they call integrated memory, a way of remembering that resists the urge to sanitize or demonize, but instead contextualizes. In this light, Wittmann is neither hero nor villain in isolation. He is part of a wider structure, and his story warns us about what happens when skill is exalted without scrutiny, and war is aestheticized instead of understood. His legacy, therefore, is not a call to admiration, but a call to awareness. As new generations grow up farther removed from the events of World War II, the danger of historical amnesia increases. The tanks, the uniforms, the dramatic tales, they remain. But the horror behind them, the machinery of dehumanization, the ideology that drove it all, that fades. unless we choose to remember deliberately. Wittmann's grave in La Combe bears no grand monument, just a name, a date, a rank, a soldier among thousands. Perhaps that is fitting. For in the end, war does not remember heroes, it remembers consequences. Thank you for staying with us through this complex and difficult story. If you appreciated the depth and balance of this documentary, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell. Your support helps us tell more stories, not to glorify war, but to understand it.